6 of Isaiah's prophecies are loud. The 7th is quiet, and it may be the strangest one of all. You're watching The Forbidden Bible, where the hidden war of angels and demons, the ancient prophecies sealed for the last days, and the forbidden mysteries of Scripture are revealed with cinematic clarity. If you're new here, subscribe and tap the bell icon, because what you're about to discover may change the way you understand heaven, the unseen realm, and your place within it. More than 2,700 years ago, the prophet Isaiah recorded a series of prophecies that stretched far beyond his own generation. He didn't describe vague spiritual feelings. He described outcomes, a land that would come back to life, a nation that would reappear suddenly, a people scattered across the world and then regathered, a moral collapse marked by calling good evil and evil good, human systems rising in confidence and then breaking, a city that would stand at the center of global attention, and a language that would return after centuries of silence. For a long time, these words were treated as symbolic or postponed to an undefined future. But today, something has changed. These 7 prophecies are no longer unfolding slowly across time. They are converging, and the final one is being fulfilled quietly while almost no one is talking about it. In this video, we'll walk through all 7 one by one, using history, geography, and observable evidence. Stay until the end, because the last prophecy doesn't just complete the pattern, it changes how you see all the others. What if the miracle Isaiah described wasn't sudden fire from heaven, but a slow, deliberate transformation you could actually measure? More than 2,700 years ago, the prophet Isaiah spoke these words in the middle of national collapse. Judah was not thriving. It was fractured morally, spiritually, and politically. Injustice had taken root. Idolatry had become normalized. Fear of foreign powers shaped national decisions. The people trusted alliances more than God. And it was in that exact context, not prosperity, not peace, that Isaiah declared something that defied every natural expectation. Not about armies, not about kings, but about land. Isaiah 35, verses 1 through 2, records it plainly. The wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the rose. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. This was not poetic imagery meant only to comfort emotions. Isaiah was making a concrete prophetic claim about geography, specific land, regions known in his time and for centuries after as lifeless. The Negev, the Arava, areas historically defined by extreme aridity, places considered inhospitable, incapable of sustaining large-scale agriculture. In the broader prophetic framework, this restoration of the land was not isolated. Isaiah connects it directly to the return of the people of Israel and the unfolding of the final stages of history. For generations, this prophecy was treated symbolically. But today, it is observable. The Negev Desert now represents more than 60% of Israel's territory. Its average annual rainfall ranges between just 25 and 100 millimeters lower than many deserts worldwide. Until the mid-20th century, international experts considered the Negev virtually uninhabitable for intensive agriculture. Photographs from the 1940s and 1950s confirm it. Rocky terrain, dry soil, little to no stable vegetation. When the modern state of Israel was founded in 1948, the challenge was enormous. The nation was born surrounded by hostility. Resources were limited, and vast areas of its territory were desert. It was in this context that Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, made a statement that history would later echo with prophetic weight. He said, "The future of the country would be decided in the Negev." Israel's survival depended on its ability to populate the desert and make it productive. The transformation that followed was not instantaneous. There was no sudden supernatural reversal. Instead, there was something else. Precision. The primary obstacle was water. The solution came through two complementary strategies. First, large-scale seawater desalination through reverse osmosis. Facilities like the Sorek desalination plant, one of the largest in the world now, produce approximately 150 million cubic meters of fresh water per year. By the end of 2025, desalination supplies between 60 and 85% of Israel's total water needs. Second, the most advanced wastewater recycling system on Earth. Over 90% of used water is treated and reused for agriculture, with targets approaching 95%. Facilities like Shafdan deliver roughly 140 million cubic meters annually to the Negev. Water reached the desert consistently, precisely, sustainably. Then came the second decisive innovation: drip irrigation. Developed in the 1950s by Simcha Blas and later commercialized by Netafim. Water delivered directly to plant roots, evaporation minimized, waste reduced. Water savings reaching 70 to 90% compared to traditional methods. Today, this technology is used in more than 100 countries. The soil itself was not replaced, it was rehabilitated. Through controlled fertilization, organic matter integration, stabilization techniques, and the result is measurable. The Negev and Arava Valley now produce tomatoes, peppers, dates, avocados, strawberries, grapes, and other export crops. Desert agriculture generates billions in economic value. Stable communities exist where none were expected. And every spring, after seasonal rains, large areas of the Negev are covered in wildflowers, including red anemones, a visual echo of Isaiah's words. Blooming, like the rose, the desert did not disappear. It ceased to be barren. This is not the final fulfillment. Isaiah never claimed it was. It is a sign. The same God who makes the sand bloom fulfills his word with historical precision. And if the land has responded, the next question is unavoidable. What happens when the people return? A nation born in a single day sounds impossible, until history gives it a timestamp. Isaiah's second prophecy does not describe gradual progress. It describes disruption, a break from historical norms. Isaiah did not speak of a people slowly evolving into statehood through diplomacy or political negotiation. He spoke of something abrupt, something without precedent. Isaiah 66 verse 8 states, "Who has heard of such a thing? Who has seen such things? Can a land be born in one day? Can a nation be brought forth in a moment? Yet as soon as Zion was in labor, she gave birth to her children." This is not symbolic language. The text emphasizes immediacy, one day, one moment, a visible event. For centuries, this statement had no historical parallel. Nations formed through wars, revolutions, or long political transitions. But Isaiah described something different, a nation appearing suddenly fully formed. After nearly 2,000 years of national non-existence, that is exactly what occurred on May 14, 1948. In a single day, Israel was proclaimed a sovereign state, not gradually, not provisionally, through a formal declaration. With immediate establishment of government, legal authority, and national structure, no other modern nation has emerged in this way after such a prolonged absence from history. But Isaiah's prophecy does not stop with the birth. It emphasizes visibility, recognition, exposure to the nations. Isaiah 11 verse 12 declares, "He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Israel. He will assemble the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth." A banner is not hidden. It is raised publicly, seen, debated, judged. This implies international awareness, not secrecy. The restoration of Israel did not occur in isolation. It unfolded before the world. In November 1947, the United Nations adopted Resolution 181, known as the Partition Plan. For the first time within a modern legal framework, the nations formally recognized the right of the Jewish people to establish a sovereign state in their ancestral land. This recognition occurred before Israel even existed as a state. There was no standing army, no full territorial control, no established government. Yet the nations debated its legitimacy, voted on its existence. The prophecy was unfolding not only on a biblical level, but within international law. When Israel declared independence on May 14, 1948, recognition was immediate. The United States recognized the new state within minutes, under President Harry Truman. For the first time since the Roman period, a world power officially recognized Israel as a sovereign nation. The recognition was not unanimous. Many nations opposed it, others hesitated, yet the nation was born in the full light of global attention, debated, challenged, and established, exactly as Isaiah described. But the prophecy continues. Because the restoration of Israel was not complete in 1948, at the center of this process stands Jerusalem. In the 1947 United Nations plan, Jerusalem was not assigned to either the Jewish or Arab state. It was designated Corpus Separatum, an international city under special administration. From a prophetic perspective, this detail matters. Jerusalem was not immediately restored. For the first 19 years of the modern state of Israel, the city remained divided. West Jerusalem came under Israeli control. East Jerusalem, including the Old City, remained under Jordanian rule. Jewish access to holy sites was restricted. The nation had been born, but its historic capital was not yet unified. This confirms something crucial. Prophecy unfolds in stages. Isaiah did not announce instant total fulfillment. He announced a process. The turning point came in June 1967 during the Six-Day War. In a conflict that threatened Israel's existence, the state took control of East Jerusalem. For the first time since the year 70, the Old City came under Jewish authority again. Jerusalem ceased to be an internationally administered city. It came under the control of the restored nation. This development aligns with another declaration from Isaiah. Isaiah 54 verse 17 states, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." From its first day, Israel was attacked, its legitimacy questioned, its existence challenged in international forums, yet it endured. The prophetic order becomes clear. First, the nation is announced. Then it is recognized before the nations. Then it is attacked. Finally, it is preserved and consolidated. Each stage occurs under global observation. Isaiah did not describe a hidden restoration. He described a nation raised before the nations, seen, judged, and established. And that leads to the next question. If a nation could return in a single day, what about the people themselves? A nation can return in a day, but a scattered people? That takes something history almost never allows. Isaiah's third prophecy goes deeper than statehood. It speaks not about borders or declarations, but about people, a real, collective, territorial return. What makes this prophecy extraordinary is when it was spoken. Isaiah delivered it while Israel still existed as a nation, which means embedded within the promise of return is the assumption of something else. Dispersion, loss, global exile. Isaiah saw the entire arc of history before it happened. Expulsion, diaspora, and restoration. Isaiah 11, verses 11 through 12, records it. In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to recover the remnant of his people from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Israel and assemble the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. This is not symbolic language. It is geographic, specific regions, multiple directions, a global scope. For nearly 2,000 years, this dispersion was historical reality. After the destruction of Jerusalem by Rome in the year 70 and the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century, the Jewish population was expelled en masse from Judea. From that point forward, Jewish communities were established across Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and eventually the Americas. From a historical perspective, this should have been the end. A people without territory, without sovereignty, without a spoken national language. Normally, such peoples disappear within a few generations. But something unusual happened. The Jewish people preserved identity, religion, memory of land, and hope of return, repeated in prayer, embedded in tradition, passed from generation to generation. The turning point came in the 20th century. On May 14, 1948, the modern state of Israel was proclaimed. But Isaiah's prophecy was never limited to political existence. The central issue was the people. And in 1950, something unprecedented occurred. Israel enacted the law of return. This law established that any Jew, regardless of country of origin, has the automatic right to return and settle in the land of Israel. No other people in recorded history has legislated the global return of a diaspora after nearly 2 millennia of dispersion. This was not symbolic. It was operational. Institutions were created. The Jewish Agency and others coordinated rescue missions, airlifts, social absorption, and resettlement. People returned not from one region, but from everywhere. Between 1948 and 1970, hundreds of thousands of Jews were expelled or forced to flee from Arab and Muslim countries. Yemen, Iraq, Morocco, Egypt, and others. Entire communities disappeared within years and reappeared in Israel. Then, history shifted again. The collapse of the Soviet Union opened another stage. Between the late 1980s and the early 21st century, more than 1 million Jews immigrated from Russia, Ukraine, and Eastern Europe. This wave permanently altered Israel's demographics, economy, and social structure. And the return did not stop. Aliyah from Western Europe, Latin America, the United States, and France accelerated, often in response to rising anti-Semitism, political instability, or social crisis. Isaiah foresaw this resistance. Isaiah 43, verses 5 through 6 states, "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth." Modern history confirms it. The return unfolded amid wars, threats, humanitarian crises, and constant international pressure. And yet, it continued. To date, more than 3.2 million Jews have returned to Israel through formal Aliyah processes since 1948. As a result, Israel's Jewish population now exceeds 7 million people. For the first time since the Roman period, the largest concentration of Jews on earth is once again in the land of Israel. Not because of ordinary economic migration, but because of identity-based return to a specific land. This is critical. For nearly 2,000 years, the majority of Jews lived outside their homeland. Today, that pattern has reversed. From a prophetic perspective, this return does not mark the end of history, it restores the stage. First, the people returned. Then, the land responded. Isaiah did not describe airplanes, or laws, or agencies. He described the outcome, that people would come back from the ends of the earth, not all at once, but in stages, exactly as written. And once the people return, the next sign becomes impossible to ignore. What happens when a restored people confront a collapsing moral world? What if the most dangerous sign Isaiah warned about wasn't war, famine, or disaster, but the moment society lost the ability to tell right from wrong? The restoration of the land and the return of the people do not exhaust Isaiah's prophetic vision. The prophet also described something darker, not political collapse, not military defeat, but moral disorientation. Isaiah did not warn about isolated acts of corruption. He warned about a civilization-wide inversion of values. Isaiah 5, verse 20 states, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." This passage does not condemn the existence of evil. Evil has always existed. The warning is about redefinition. When a society no longer recognizes evil as evil, but celebrates it. When good is no longer protected, but ridiculed. Isaiah delivered this warning during a period of material prosperity and spiritual decline. Judah had developed religious, political, and social systems that justified injustice. Sin was normalized. Accountability was reframed as cruelty. Truth became inconvenient. The prophet identifies a specific process. First, truth is relativized, not denied outright, but softened, contextualized, negotiated. Then, language changes. Words are redefined. Harmful behaviors are renamed. Destructive impulses are given moral cover through euphemisms. Finally, conscience follows language. When words change, moral perception changes. And when perception changes, behavior follows. What was once called perversion becomes a right. What was once called virtue becomes oppression. The prophecy does not describe ignorance. It describes intentional substitution, a deliberate moral exchange. Isaiah did not frame this as a harmless cultural shift. He framed it as a prelude. In the same chapter, Isaiah connects moral inversion to instability. When values collapse, systems follow. Justice weakens. Trust erodes. Social cohesion fractures. A society that loses moral discernment loses the ability to sustain itself. Many biblical interpreters observe that this prophecy intensifies near the final stages of history, not diminishes. The restoration of Israel and global moral decay advance in parallel. While God restores land, people, and language, the broader world drifts from foundational moral anchors. This contrast is not accidental. It is prophetic. Isaiah did not announce steady moral progress, he announced crisis. The sign is not that evil exists. The sign is that evil is defended, celebrated, protected by language. When moral correction is labeled hatred and restraint is called oppression, the scenario Isaiah described is active. This is not theoretical. It is observable. Across institutions, across cultures, across systems. Moral inversion is not just decay, it is a signal, and Isaiah warned that once this stage is reached, another process accelerates. Because when morality collapses, human systems rise in confidence, and that leads directly to the next prophecy. What happens when humanity believes it no longer needs God? What if the greatest weakness of human civilization is the moment it becomes most confident in itself? Isaiah's fifth prophecy shifts focus again, away from land, away from people, and towards systems. Not individual arrogance, but collective pride. Isaiah warns that before the final outcome of history, humanity would enter a phase marked by extreme self-confidence, not expressed through a single leader or ideology, but embedded within political, economic, technological, and cultural structures. Systems designed to function without reference to God. Isaiah places this warning within a broader prophetic framework known as the Day of the Lord. Not a single moment, but a period in which human self-sufficiency is confronted. Isaiah 2, verses 11 through 12, states, "The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall come upon everything proud and lofty, upon everything lifted up, and it shall be brought low." This language is not aimed at private morality. It targets structures. Isaiah lists fortified cities, high towers, defensive systems, symbols of permanence and control. In other words, civilizations that trust in their own capacity for security and continuity. The message is precise. When human achievement becomes absolute, it becomes fragile. From a historical perspective, this pattern is consistent. Empires that appeared indestructible collapsed without warning. Economic systems considered unshakable revealed hidden instability. Institutions created to guarantee order exposed internal corruption, moral decay, and loss of legitimacy. Isaiah does not describe these collapses as random. He describes them as inevitable consequences of prolonged pride. In the modern era, this prophecy takes on new clarity. Humanity has reached unprecedented levels of technological and organizational sophistication. Information moves instantly, systems are globally interconnected, control appears total. Yet, alongside this progress is something else. A systematic exclusion of God from public thought, from ethics, from decision-making, from collective accountability. The modern world does not loudly declare that God does not exist. It simply behaves as though he is unnecessary. Isaiah anticipated this posture, a world that is advanced, self-assured, and spiritually hollow. In that context, the prophet issues a warning. Human systems do not collapse because they are primitive. They collapse because they are built apart from humility. Progress itself is not condemned, but progress detached from dependence becomes destructive. When humanity places itself at the center, systems become distorted. What appears stable becomes brittle. What seems permanent reveals cracks. Isaiah emphasizes that this collapse is not sudden or chaotic. It is gradual, cumulative, visible. Pride grows, strain increases, injustice becomes normalized, and collapse follows not as a surprise, but as a foretold outcome. This description aligns precisely with the current global landscape. Confidence at historic levels, institutions under visible stress, trust eroding, legitimacy questioned. Isaiah does not frame the end as a single, catastrophic event. He presents it as the logical conclusion of a long trajectory of self-sufficiency. The core issue is not human capability, it is autonomy. When humanity claims absolute independence, order breaks down. When God is displaced, collapse shifts from possibility to certainty. Isaiah concludes with a final contrast. Amid the fall of the proud, only one remains unshaken. The Lord is exalted not through arbitrary destruction, but by revealing that any system built without him lacks an eternal foundation. And once systems begin to fail, attention shifts, not to power, not to progress, but to a single city. A city, Isaiah said, would stand at the center of the world. What if the most contested city on earth was never meant to be quiet? Isaiah's sixth prophecy narrows the lens. From systems, from civilizations, to a single city, Jerusalem. Isaiah does not present Jerusalem as a forgotten relic of ancient faith, nor as a minor regional capital. He presents it as a focal point, a place where the attention of nations converges, politically, spiritually, geopolitically. Isaiah 2, verses 2 through 3, declares, "In the latter days, the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. Many peoples shall come and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord.'" This language goes beyond worship. It describes movement, attention, convergence. Jerusalem becomes a reference point the world cannot ignore. When Isaiah spoke these words, there was no reason to expect this. Jerusalem was a small city, no empire, no strategic trade dominance, no global military power. From a historical standpoint, it should have remained obscure. That is precisely why the prophecy is so striking. Modern history reveals a progressive and measurable fulfillment. Jerusalem has become one of the most observed, debated, and contested cities on the planet. Decisions involving its status trigger immediate international reactions. Diplomatic crises, United Nations resolutions, regional conflicts, global media attention. No other city consistently concentrates political, religious, and prophetic claims with such intensity. Jerusalem occupies a unique position. It is sacred to Jews, sacred to Christians, sacred to Muslims. This triple centrality ensures that events within its borders reverberate far beyond its geography. Isaiah does not claim this convergence would produce harmony. The prophecy does not promise peace. It promises centrality. The exalted city becomes a contested city. The flow of nations does not dissolve conflict. It intensifies it. From a prophetic perspective, Jerusalem functions as a barometer. When Jerusalem is unsettled, the world reacts. When its status is questioned, international tension rises. This pattern is not accidental. It follows an ancient script. Jerusalem's influence does not come from size, or population, or economic power. It comes from meaning. Isaiah foresaw that this city's weight would be symbolic and spiritual, not material. That is why its impact exceeds its physical dimensions. In the context of the final stages of history, many biblical interpreters understand Jerusalem as a stage, not because the city seeks that role, but because prophecy assigns it, a place where decisions converge, where tensions surface, where global attention tightens. Isaiah's message is precise. Jerusalem is not one city among many. It is an axis. And when an axis shifts, the entire system feels it. The persistent focus on Jerusalem is not a passing media phenomenon. It is not coincidence. It is a sign consistent with a prophecy spoken over 2 millennia ago, still unfolding before the eyes of the world. And once the city stands at the center, another restoration becomes visible, one that is quieter, less political, but just as impossible, a language returning from silence. What if the final sign wasn't political, wasn't territorial, but linguistic? Isaiah's 7th prophecy is rarely discussed, not because it is unclear, but because it is unprecedented. The prophet did not only speak of land, nation, and city, he spoke of something more intimate: language. In Scripture, language is not a tool. It is identity. It carries memory, covenant, worldview. When a people loses its language, it loses continuity. Isaiah understood this. Isaiah 19 verse 18 states, "In that day, 5 cities in the land of Egypt will speak the language of Canaan and swear allegiance to the Lord of hosts." This phrase does not refer to a regional dialect. It refers to Hebrew, the language of covenant. Already in Isaiah's time, Hebrew was being displaced by foreign tongues. The prophet also links language restoration to spiritual clarity. Isaiah 32 verse 4 declares, The tongue of the stammerers will speak plainly and clearly. The emphasis is not just speech, it is intelligibility, correct expression. Historical reality confirms how extraordinary this is. Hebrew ceased to function as a daily spoken language centuries before Christ. After the diaspora, it was replaced by Aramaic, Greek, Latin, and later by Yiddish, Ladino, and local languages. For nearly 2,000 years, Hebrew survived only as a liturgical language, used in prayer, in study, but not in daily life. From a linguistic perspective, this is terminal. Languages that stop being spoken do not return. They are studied, preserved, but never revived as living national languages. Yet Hebrew did. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th, figures such as Eliezer ben Yehuda initiated the revival of Hebrew as a spoken language. What began as a cultural effort became something unprecedented. When the State of Israel was proclaimed in 1948, Hebrew was not adopted symbolically. It was established as the official language of the state. Today, Hebrew is fully alive. It is used in parliament, in courts, in the military, in science, medicine, engineering, and technology. Mathematics is taught in a language once considered dead. There is no historical parallel. Ancient languages are studied. None are resurrected as operational national languages after nearly 2 millennia of disuse. From a prophetic perspective, this is not a cultural footnote. It is restoration. God did not only promise to return the people, He promised to restore their voice. The same language Isaiah spoke is now read, spoken, and taught daily in the land he described. This is not symbolic, it is historical. The revival of Hebrew completes the pattern. The people returned, the land responded, the nation was restored. Jerusalem became central. Morality collapsed globally. Human systems strained and fractured, and the language came back. Isaiah did not describe dictionaries, or schools, or language committees. He described the result, a people able to speak clearly again. Isaiah's prophecies were not isolated predictions. They form a unified sequence. First, the people return. Then the land responds. The nation is reborn. Jerusalem becomes the axis. Moral inversion spreads globally. Human systems exalt themselves and begin to fail. And finally, the language returns. Restoration and collapse advance side by side. This is not coincidence. It is design. The signs Isaiah described did not remain in the past. They are observable, active, advancing. History does not contradict Scripture. It confirms it. And if what was spoken more than 2,700 years ago has unfolded with this level of precision, then what remains should not be ignored. History is moving. Prophecy is active. And the question is no longer, is it happening? The question is, what happens next? This is the Forbidden Bible. We'll see you in the next episode.